Hey folks, MasakoX here. It's around about 10 or so days left until Christmas Day, and I would like to say we're about halfway through this story. But wait, nearly halfway there and we're not even Dragon Ball Z yet? What's going on? Well, you see, Chi-Chi is definitely a major player in Dragon Ball, and I do intend to have her stay that way into the short to medium term future. But things could easily change once we get more external influence, most notably from space. In the meantime, there is plenty more to discuss with the likes of Goku's wife in a place where she too could become a Dragon Team fighter and show off what she could truly do. In the last part, we saw mostly the 3-year time skip unfold before the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament. In that time, the dragon was brought back, and all those felled by King Piccolo were revived, and the world was restored. Kami had been a little more hands-on this time around after seeing what had gone down on Earth. Not by much though, this is Kami we're talking about here, but something more at least than the original. This meant that Chi-Chi and Goku got to spend this time together and perfect their respective skills, those that they had acquired either through the other world or through the intervention of witches who wished to show up their brothers. Jealous much? In the end, their power gains were quite a bit more potent than the original, and we could start to see things really change in our heroes' favour. The tournament is upon us, the 23rd one, and whilst Kami had overseen sort of the development of Piccolo Jr., nothing was strong enough to warrant him stepping in and eliminating the threat of the son of the Demon King. The 23rd tournament is the backdrop for this final push towards things getting a little more interstellar in their approach. Doesn't mean that it can't be exciting though. Before the preliminaries had begun, Ox King had been instructed by Roshi to attend, guessing that his daughter would make an appearance. It had been a really long time since he had seen his little girl. And now she wasn't so little anymore. Yes, he knew that she had been looked after well in all of these years and that she had been safe and healthy, but darn it, it had been so long since he had had a proper hug from her. When they met, it was a very wholesome embrace. Ox couldn't believe how much stronger she had gotten, and she looked so full of life and happy. She wasn't a princess in the traditional sense. She looked ready for action.
Oh no, if only your mother could see you now. She'd be proud of you. You look almost exactly like her.
Chi-Chi blushed and formally introduced her fiancé to his father. He was overjoyed to see that childhood impulse manifest itself into something real, that it had stayed the course, and he was already starting to plan the wedding for them once this tournament was over. Clearly, these two had been busy training, and he didn't want to get in the way.
I'll be in the stands with your buddies. You could do it, sweetie. And Goku, don't go too hard on her, okay?
Chi-Chi was very bashful hearing this. Despite now being one of the strongest on Earth, she was still her daddy's little girl. Your dad's nice, said Goku, completely oblivious to her shyness. Again, thanks to Chaozu fudging the numbers, the gang would not bump into one another too early and end the fun for one of them early on. So, we then get to the quarterfinals, and wouldn't you know it, Hero has shown up. That's Kami in disguise, by the way, for the uninitiated. He had wanted to come down and see Piccolo Jr.'s behaviour for himself, and so far, it hadn't been anything to worry about. Too much. He hadn't done anything bad. In fact, he hadn't done anything nearly as horrible as his father had done since he was born those years ago. Perhaps Chi-Chi was right. Maybe the son was not as malicious as the king was. But Kami just couldn't let himself think that. It was his duty as the guardian of Earth to ensure that not a trace of King Piccolo was left to endanger its inhabitants. We still get Tenshinhan decking Tao in the schnoz as before, as well as Goku and Chi-Chi meeting in the quarterfinals. I mean, come on, Chaozu can only do so much. Chi-Chi wasn't all that bothered about winning this tournament, but she was very keen to see this in a competitive setting, what he could do, Goku, regardless of its location. The same could be said for the Monkey Man. He wanted to see Chi-Chi and what she could do. The fight began, and immediately their power gap to the rest became apparent. Nobody could keep a sustained eye on them. Not even Piccolo. They kept darting out of sight, reappearing for just a couple of seconds, and then vanishing again. It just kept on going like this. And, the Green Man who had been watching looked concerned before resuming his grimace. Kami observed this, and felt a little better. If he had felt genuine surprise at their power, Goku and Chi-Chi, then there's no way he could be stronger than them. But then again, that could lead to desperation tactics. so they'd best be careful. In the ring, right now, Goku and Chi-Chi were putting all of their cards on the table for everyone to see. Despite their power being relatively equal, it was Chi-Chi that had the upper hand thanks to her magical attributes. Goku, no matter how much he tried to study them, couldn't get the hang of it. No matter how much Chi-Chi had tried to teach him just even the basics of magical manipulation. It just wasn't something he could do well, and so he didn't see much point in trying to understand it anymore. He'd rather focus on what he was good at, his martial arts and core strength. But right now, that tactic wasn't helping. Chi-Chi's magical summoning of power had only grown thanks to Kami's tutelage. He had trust in her that she was of pure heart and wished to do good with this blessing of mystical energy. She stood firm and let rip a giant bull of flame, the first time Ox had seen this unfold. No way! She had managed to harness her inner beast? He had the power to do so as well, but he could never in a million years manifest something like that, a 20-foot high red flaming ox. One day, she might end up being even stronger than him. Yes, I still stand by the whole Ox King power level 900 thing. I love it. Then the sky was truly without the limit if she could do that. The bull locked with Goku's hands and began to push him toward the edge of the ring. The fire, despite not burning his hands, was definitely making things a little bit hot under the collar for Goku, but he managed to muster up just enough strength to stop the bull in its tracks. But seconds later, the bull just vanished, dissipated, and out from all of that smoke sprang Chi-Chi, who leapt through it and kicked Goku out of the ring, all thanks to the power of diversion. Chi-Chi was through to the semi-finals. Goku couldn't believe it. He had been bested. But no matter, it had been a cool fight, and this only wanted him to try even harder next time. Chi-Chi leapt down and hugged her fiancé, and promised to bring home the win. But things would only get a little more hairy. Krillin and Piccolo Jr. were up next, and this is where the demon's son resentment rose to the fore. In front of him was one of the fighters that had killed his father. Despite his heart not being nearly as evil as he, Piccolo Jr. was still facing down the one who had ended the king, and he wouldn't hold back. Krillin was going into this battle without much information to go on. He knew that this would be an awkward reunion, but he didn't realize that this kid would be probably even stronger than his dad. I mean, to be fair, come on. To Krillin, this guy's like 3 years old? Soon enough, though. The raw vitriol behind Piccolo's moves was so intense that it left the little guy badly injured and forced to tap out. Kami's mind was set. Chi-Chi had been wrong. He had to stop Junior from getting to her. Even though she was technically stronger, who knows what sort of tricks the demon would pull to one-up his pupil and destroy everybody. Chi-Chi and Tenshinhan then meet with the latter, folding after a very spirited struggle between Bullstrike and Kickoff, and Hero's efforts, of course, against Piccolo Jr. were left wanting, and this meant that Chi-Chi and Piccolo Jr. would meet in the final. Chi-Chi knew that things would be serious. She had seen this happen with Krillin. He clearly had a grudge to bear this one, and he wouldn't go easy on her, nor would she expect it. Goku felt this too, and once Krillin had recovered thanks to a senzu bean from Yajirobe, he warned Chi-Chi to be careful. "This guy ain't playing, Chi. He's got an extra grind. Don't let your guard down." "I won't, but still, he's not his father. Maybe there's a way to get through to him." Despite her wanting to pound Piccolo senseless for what he had done to Krillin, Chi-Chi just couldn't quite bring herself to eviscerate him. Even though Kami had deemed him a lost cause, unfit for purpose, Chi-Chi felt something else. That is down to her natural maternal instincts. Now hear me out. You see, you can still be a kick-ass fighter and a mage of sorts, but that doesn't mean you have to be a cold and prudish soul, right, Tenshinhan? No, Chi-Chi is still Chi-Chi, and she still has a natural nurturing side to her, which is then fostered by a feeling of security and comfort. With her about to settle down with Goku for the future, Chi-Chi gained a sense of perspective and could tell that Piccolo Jr., all that he needed was just a little bit of guidance. He was alone, and had been alone for all of his life. It was time for him to no longer fly solo. Piccolo had people that he could be friends with. In the ring, Piccolo, who had been quite taciturn up until this point, was far more vocal when facing Chi-Chi.
"So, you're the one who killed my father?"
Chi-Chi was adamant that she only did it to save the world.
Doesn't stop you from doing it. I'm here to avenge its memory. You'll regret getting in my way.
Chi-Chi began to fight Piccolo and realized that she had to resort to a little tough love, as it were. She completely dominated the initial fracas. Piccolo had no answer to it. The magical energy behind Chi-Chi's power was too strong and ethereal to counter. With a flaming punch to the floor, Piccolo was left winded as Chi-Chi loomed over him. I can tell you're not like your father. Why do you persist in following his edict blindly? You know that deep in your heart that you seek solace for yourself.
Enough! Why do you prattle on?
Kami and I have watched you for years. Not once did you act upon your father's words when you could. Yes, you were mean-spirited and a real grouch, but you never killed anyone. That's not the mark of a demon reincarnate. Let me help you. Let us help you. Piccolo rejected this offer and began to get serious, resorting to his giant form. This caught Chi-Chi off guard, and she got stuck in his grip. Goku wanted to step in and help, but he found out that if he interfered, he'd end up disqualifying Chi-Chi, and he didn't want that. This was something to be sorted between the pair of them. In that moment of weakness, Chi-Chi began to regain her composure. She needed to be more direct, just like with his father. She began to focus her energy and summon forth the largest amount of blazing magic she could muster in her current state. You know, suffocating. She began to glow red hot, her eyes burning with supernal force. Piccolo could feel his hands beginning to get a little toasty, and really getting toasty, before becoming too hot to handle and he had to let go. Before him floated Chi-Chi, being held in the air with the huge amount of supernatural mana that she had called upon in that moment. She looked terrifying.
What are you?
Chi-Chi then cooled off a little. Piccolo, you don't have to rage against everything. You can live your life as you see fit, not by the constraints of your past. You are free. I beg you. Eschew your father's words. The fact he was giant was not helping because remember, he can't sustain it for very long without feeling extreme pain, so he had to revert back to his regular size. Chi-Chi landed on the ground and looked to the green man. He didn't say anything, but he could tell she was right. He did not have it in him, after all, to be like his father. He had failed. Piccolo, join us. But before Piccolo could respond, Chi-Chi collapsed, blood cascading down her arm. What happened? Had Piccolo hit her? No, it was a bullet wound. A shot had rang through the arena from Launch's gun. Nobody had seen it before she had scurried off.
That'll show you. Nobody messes with me and gets away with it.
Well, about that. In mere seconds, Piccolo stared Launch down. He had stepped out of the ring, not caring about the fight. He said nothing. He just stared at Launch, looming over her. All 7 foot of big green muscle.
Hey! You better scramble! I'll shoot! Go ahead. Try me.
She did, but the bullets did nothing.
Pathetic. Attacking her when her guard was down, and she was open to attack.
He grabbed the gun and squeezed it tight. It ain't gonna be working. And Launch was terrified out of her mind. Not only had this guy deflected her projectiles, but he had now bent her gun like it were made out of paper. At once, she ran for it, bumping people out of the way. Piccolo let her go. She wouldn't be coming back anytime soon. Back in the ring, things were looking up. Chi-Chi hadn't been mortally wounded, but it certainly rendered her arm unusable for combat. But she was still conscious, and therefore, since Piccolo had vacated the ring, she had won by default. Goku ran over to her and checked to see if she were okay. I'd rather have been, honey. To which Goku quickly obliged. After the festivities were over and Chi-Chi had recovered, she went to go look for Piccolo. She found him at the outside gate of the arena, about ready to leave. Piccolo! Why did you forfeit? Piccolo turned around and gave her a very, very faint smirk.
You may talk, Dribble, but I couldn't let some sneak get in the way of a fight.
Chi-Chi had no idea who shot her. She couldn't see it happen. We did, though.
This isn't over. I'll be back, stronger than ever.
You won't win the next time we meet. Chi-Chi didn't seem worried about this. She had been proven right. If Piccolo were truly like his father, he wouldn't have gone after the shooter like that. He'd have just let Chi-Chi bleed out. Good. I knew you had it in you. Piccolo grunted before flying off. She'll get through to him soon enough. After the tournament was over, there was a wedding to prepare. Ox had pulled out all the stops for this, and the ceremony was absolutely stunning. Goku and Chi-Chi were wed, and they had their lives ahead of them. Launch had tried again to rain on her parade at the wedding, but Piccolo acted like some sort of bodyguard without them knowing, watching over Chi-Chi from afar, keen to not let her pull away any further. See what made her tick. And also acting as protection in a way. There was something about her that he had to figure out, if he were to beat her again and at least claw back some of his lost dignity. Either way, the time would come, but we are now pretty much done with the time of the original Dragon Ball, which is where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what did you folks think? Did Chi-Chi's new power make Dragon Ball into a different animal? What do you think will occur going into Z? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!